Good evening, everyone. This is Kansuki Dynasty, and we have here Just Fine. And we are going to be talking today about a little bit of training that we have been doing recently. We have been thinking a little bit about close-range neutral and possible future katas, and facing off against the CPU Dulcin. Now, we've obviously, given that we are starting to develop a kata, have figured out particular goals to focus on in our training here. And the one that we are focused on primarily today relates to close-range neutral, and using this experience to get used to the concept and some of the things involved in making yourself a stronger neutral player at close range. So, as Just Fine is playing here, her goal is to be relatively close enough to Dulcin at some point that he will use a Yoga Flame, that one right there, and then to hit something 9 frames or less that will probably counter-hit things that he can do after it. He can, of course, block, but he's -3 or maybe -2, depending on the version he uses. And this means that many of his options would get counter-hit by these responses. So, as Just Fine here fights Dulcin, she's waiting to get a block on that Yoga Flame, and then to hit an appropriate button. Ideally, the button is safe, probably 9 or fewer frames, and obviously we'll be able to reach him. Now, Dulcin is not so minus that he can't block, but he is minus enough that it's not his turn, and you can punish him for attempting to continue to take it. So while she works out what buttons she needs to use on Ed at what spacings to punish that appropriately, a little bit of background about the situation. In relatively close range neutral, when your opponent hits a button that is minus, you tend to have options, and your options will vary depending on how minus your opponent's button is. For things that are only maybe -1 or -2, you have to punish with something relatively quicker, and therefore often shorter. When moves start getting up further and further, you have more and more options. But at the end of the day, your goal is to hit your opponent before he can hit you with whatever button he intends to use to continue his pressure. In Dulcin's case, he has a variety of slow options, as well as a couple of faster options, but which are very short in terms of range. So if you are positioned correctly, which is not absolute point blank, but is slightly further out, you don't necessarily have to worry about those lights, or at the very least, you don't need to worry about them turning into anything if he hit confirms or similar. His better buttons for this are all slower in startup, and will allow you an opportunity to counter-hit them with, say, your medium buttons, which might be 6 or 7 frames, and allow you to possibly cancel on a hit confirm to proceed forward and actually do some real damage as a punish. So, when you are in this situation where you've just blocked a Yoga Flame, and you're hitting a button, you have 2 options here, possibly 3. Either Dulcin has hit something light that you doesn't necessarily get a lot off of, which is a little bad for you, but not terribly fatal. Or Dulcim can block, in which case you've now connected and your move is safe. Maybe minus, maybe not minus, which will determine whether you get your turn along with spacing and other things. But overall, it didn't cost you anything to make the attempt. Or, in the third and greatest case, Dulcim has hit a heavier button hoping to capitalize on the lack of a punish, or a punish that is too heavy or such, repositioning, whatever it may be. He wants to go for something that he doesn't quite necessarily have the timing for, and you get to counter-hit him. With this counter-hit, or if you're lucky in particular ways, crush counter from certain moves of certain characters, you then get to confirm into more damage most of the time. And obviously you'd want to choose a button that will allow you to combo. This will be limited by various things such as spacing and what buttons combo or cancel in what ways. But you have the added advantage that because you did hit your button right after you blocked it, you know that if you do hit him, it's going to be a counter hit. Almost assuredly. He could simply stand there, not block, not hit a button. But it's less likely, and you'd probably still at least get a free button off of him. So the first thing to learn is, what comboable or cancelable buttons do you have that you can hit basically after the Yoga Fire hit? Once you've figured out what will probably hit him from any given range, something to get used to because you obviously won't be at the same range every time, a fixed pushback perhaps, but not necessarily a fixed starting position. And once you've figured out what button you can hit, you get to figure out if you should continue the combo. Obviously, if it's blocked, you don't want to go on into some unsafe or other such move. If it's hit, it's probably a counter hit, although it might occasionally not be if you simply didn't do anything. And so you have not just an extra 2 frames that will help you make a slightly longer combo or give you just a small amount more time to confirm your normal hit confirm. It gives you one added advantage, which you might have seen a few times, and perhaps Just Fine will manage to demonstrate again soon. You get a little counter hit pop up on your side of the screen saying that you've counter hit your opponent. Right there. And this can be useful as it's just one more way that you can see that you hit or know exactly what and where to look for. It's a very reliable, predictable, regular thing that pops up on screen every time you counter hit someone, which can make your confirms a little bit easier versus worrying about exactly what the movement on the, well, between the two fighters is. But at the end of the day, one thing you're going to need to practice is counter hit confirming if you want to at least convert a great deal off of this. And so, watching that indicator, watching just whether you've hit, and knowing that it's a counter hit, will allow you to know when you should cancel or combo, or basically try to continue whatever punish you might or might not have gotten if he had, for instance, blocked instead. And so, that's step 1. Trying to figure out what your counter hit combos are, possibly learning that, or practicing getting that confirmed, maybe starting with Eve's mode to V-cancel if you have V-gauge, and against bot, obviously you can set yourself to always have V-gauge. And so this will both make it safe if you mess up, although that's less of the purpose, but also, hopefully, if you do hit and confirm correctly, it will allow you to go into a much stronger combo. Now, the end result of all of this, you might be wondering why you care completely, is quite simply that even though Dulcim could maybe hit you with a light, Or if you're too slow or confirm wrong, he could hit you with something heavier and maybe combo against you. Sure, some of your options are unsafe, but it's a trade-off, because Dulcim has to decide what to do, just like you do. Only he doesn't necessarily get to confirm in quite the same way as easily. And at the end of the day, if Dulcim pokes you 3 or 4 times with his lights, and counter hits you that way, etc., but isn't able to turn it into much, and then you manage to counter hit him once and combo into full B-cancel, whatever it happens to be at the time, you've gotten a lot more out of this whole set of engagements, even though you've managed to get hit and, in a way you could call it lose, the encounter more times than he has. So the first step of what we were looking at is figuring out, realizing that your opponent is minus, and that you can just hit a safe button if you know your ranges and options well. In this situation, Dulcim will always be -3 or possibly -2, which means you can hit a medium or longer button, or heavier button, and still manage to counter hit things that he puts out afterwards. So step 1 is to learn what your options are for just getting that initial punish. Hopefully it's something safe. Hopefully it's something relatively long range, so that the pushback isn't a horrible problem for you. And hopefully it's something that confirms into lots of damage, if you do it right.
Also, Dulcim's Yoga Flame has a really weird, irregular, well, not irregular, but just a weird sort of hit stun timing on the block. So, Karine has a lot of stuff like this too, right? Where the block stun doesn't really end after the animation right away, so you kind of push the button because the move ended, but you're still in block stun.
And that's one of the reasons that it's important to practice this against the characters that you're thinking of, and just get lots of experience with various things in neutral and otherwise when you're in training mode or possibly in casual or other matches. But at the end of the day, once you've figured out when to hit the button based on getting used to the block stun, you are going to need to figure out what button to use. You're going to need to learn the ranges where you can use it, and you're going to need to figure out how to combo off of it. And that's, you need to be aware of what can combo off it. And that's step 1. Step 2 becomes training yourself to be able to combo on counter hit. To either see the pop-up of the message, see that you managed to actually hit Dulcim and weren't blocked, maybe see that you were blocked and know to stop. But overall, getting that cancel at the right times or not makes a big difference, because obviously it's the difference between safe or not and big damage or not. And so that's the basic idea of what we have been working on and practicing a little bit with Dulcim.
Alright, that's good stuff.
And so now, you've gotten to see a little bit of just fine working out Ed's options for this. And so next up, you're going to get to see me practicing Ibuki a little bit, and trying to figure out what I have as possibilities for myself there.
So yeah, another thing I found this sort of useful for, I don't really play Ed, seriously. But he's a character who interests me a lot in terms of his tools and such. So the main thing that I was noting about Ed in particular is that he sort of has a little bit of a difficult time because the Yoga Flame can push him out a decent amount at a lot of ranges where his like crouching medium punch and standing medium punch would hit. So for him, it starts becoming about where can I use my kick, my standing and crouching medium kick, and I'm sort of used to using punch buttons for like punishes as a general thing as a player. So I was finding that an interesting thing that it sort of forced me to adapt to, forcing to using buttons I'm not really used to using. And that sort of, Ed does that like as a character overall, so I kind of like whenever I get a chance to mess around with him. But the other thing that I was finding useful with Dhalsim, and it's something I've been trying to focus on for my main characters, is there are situations against Dhalsim where you can just practice your wake up as well. When you are like on the ground, you have a little bit more time to think than you would against other characters, just because of the way Dhalsim's designed. He's a very sort of relaxed character, and his buttons tend to take a little bit longer for you to wake up from, just as a general thing. So I was personally looking for, okay, do I want to quick rise here? Do I want to back roll here? Because setting up the spacing against Dhalsim for this kata to work, you don't really want to lose spacing, because he's an annoying character to get in on.
But at the same time, when you're considering that, I have found in my own observations and training that he's offered me a bit of patience, because at least when I have been fighting him, he will eventually get in on you. As dangerous as getting in on him is, the CPU has tended to use dive kicks or similar things and teleport in on me and do that, more or less. So you don't necessarily need to get in on him specifically for this to work, although that's certainly a part of the Dhalsim gameplay that you're going to have to deal with in real situations.
But I was more so saying that it was nice to like be able to just like step back and think of what button do I want to use to wake up. Because for a lot of training stuff, I usually end up spamming my quick rise sort of thoughtlessly, and I don't really get a chance to think of, is this really what I want to be pressing? Because what you use to rise can vary on a whole bunch of different situations and environmental factors and what your opponent might be doing. So it's not something you want to thoughtlessly do for sure.
So now you get the experience of me working out what to do with this on Ibuki for basically the first time. I haven't been playing her a whole lot of late, and this is my first experience with her specifically attempting this. So I get to figure out what my options are, and so far I've been finding that most of the options that will fit, I looked at the frame data briefly, and I ruled out her heavier moves like this, obviously her stand heavy kick, but I believe also her crouching heavy punch and her so just because they're slightly too long, they're 10 frames, they'll work against some things, they might not work quite against all things. However, this one is 9 frames, but it doesn't look like the range of it is going to be sufficient, as you see. So at the end of the day, I know that I'm going to need to be looking through Ibuki's medium buttons. And so that leaves my main options as medium kick, medium punch, possibly crouching medium kick, or this gloriously ranged crouching medium punch. However, I may get less off of that. So first things first, let's figure out what I can hit with relatively frequently after these. And obviously it will depend a little bit on range. But let's get out of that fire. Oh, come on. Obviously I can hit with this one. But as you see, the stand medium punch is a little short, so I don't really get that option unless I'm basically at the range where instead of using Yoga Flame, he's just probably going to throw me. So I'm going to use standing medium punch. Next question, can I use standing medium kick? It does go into plenty of stuff for Ibuki. It goes into that target combo. You can do other things with it as well if you want. So let's get in on him, or wait for him to get in on us. You can practice blocking that teleport cross-up as well. And he's teleported out of the way, so that didn't teach me much. It didn't say that I am in range, and it didn't say that I'm not in range.
You seem to be able, as a Ibuki, to get in on him at the range where he'll start using the Yoga Flame a lot easier, though. Her command dash seems to set you up at good ranges for it.
Yes, now I just need a little bit of patience. So there is a good option for me. At a specific range, I can use that. 6 frames at -3, it's going to be even a 3-frame light since it's medium. Standing light kick is a good option, so let's find out. Yes, actually. So that's one that I can also do. Thank you. And obviously it has its own range to be concerned about. So I have 2 options now. Standing... I know that my medium punch can be a little far. This probably implies my light punch is. I know my standing medium kick can hit at some ranges, and standing light kick can hit at some ranges as well. As I've shown, the crouching medium punch does. So now I have myself down to a few candidates. And the real question is, what can I counter-hit confirm meaningful damage off of? As our lovely guest has noted, if I can counter-hit confirm light kick into Raida, which I haven't done in a while, that will work. Of course, he has to actually... See, now there I have a problem where I'm doing it regardless of whether I'm blocked or not. And eventually I'll need to get rid of that, because the idea is to counter-hit confirm so that I remain safe. I believe Raida is... minus a bit. I don't remember the exact number. I think it might be 7, but I might be confusing it with other things. So obviously it's not safe if I don't confirm it. So confirming it would be ideal. However, if I do land it, I'm putting him into all of Ibuki's wake-up, mix-up pressure. Obviously a positive for me. However, the problem I see here is that the range, not on the light kick, but on the Raida might be too little. Apparently not, however.
I bet your EX Raida, regardless of what you, yeah, check EX Raida for me and see if it, has the range to do it at max for the pushback.
EX Raida has a great deal of range and can absolutely do it. However, the question is that EX Raida will throw the opponent very far away compared to Light Raida and make meaty pressure much more difficult out of the corner. So, it's an option that I will consider. but it may not be the first option I consider. And there I'm too far out to use anything but the crouch medium punch. So as I'm getting used to these ranges, one of the things I'm getting used to is what to hit at what range. Because each bit he pushes me out, each bit that our spacing has changed, if I micro step forward or such. Let's get some more kunai here. Yeah, fine. I said more kunai. Oops, that's not kicks. Look at me. Anyway, there we are. So from there, I would need to hit that button. And as you see, I do counter hit. The question is, can I do anything with that? I do not know personally many of Ibuki's counter hit combos. I don't know if she gets any off of this. I know that you can't directly cancel this, but it does have some options for things it leads into. And so more or less the idea is that over time as I practice against, in this case, CPU Dhalsim, though there may be other places where I can do it as well, I get practice with all these things. I'm learning the ranges of my various buttons when I can hit them for punishes. I'm getting used to pushback from Dhalsim's Yoga Flame. I'm getting used to maybe even paying attention to where I am and where after the pushback I will end up, so I know in advance what button to press. I'm getting used to the idea of hit confirming and de-canceling, and basically I am also obviously looking up what combos or options I have and studying my character a little more. So all in all, I have a great deal to work with here. And that is more or less the basic idea. So I'm going to actually switch, although light into Raida or crouch medium into maybe kunai or V-cancel or other things is possible. Let's get rid of the speed trigger. I'm going to switch to using stand medium kick because of something useful I've noted that he does here that will just let me talk about something. He teleports directly out of my way. Isn't that inconvenient? And he does go invincible quick enough that, in my experience here with Ibuki, but also with Cammy and Karin, I'm not going to manage to hit him. So the question is, what to do about that? Obviously, if he teleports far away from you, probably nothing. Maybe throw a kunai depending. Probably wait and just figure out where you are and what to do next. I see. Yes. As Rillian notes, there's a point where he cannot do his medium kick and hit you, and at that range you can hit safe heavy buttons as well, and not have to worry about getting counter hit from them. Which gives you more options at certain ranges. As it stands, though, in that case, we traded because I was a little too far out to counter hit. Or a little slow, possibly. One thing I've noted, though, is his back to what I was talking about, his teleportation options can be a little frustrating if you're trying to hit him and then suddenly he's gone. But something to note is that his teleport is actually relatively long, and he doesn't recover from it instantly. So if he chooses to teleport right in front of you, just basically to dodge your move, you can, in many cases, although you may have to test it or calculate it with your own character, simply try hitting the button again and it will hit him when he reappears near you. Or if he reappears far away, it will whiff, but he's still reappearing and can't necessarily punish it very well. Things to consider. However, for the moment, we are going to be switching characters again, this time to Juri, and giving you a little more taste of things to come.
Safe heavy buttons, huh?
At that range.
I hate arcing fireball characters with against Juri. It's just such a pain. And there I go. See what I mean? Pain. That's an idea. I could probably do light pinwheel out of that. Now that I think about it. Yeah, honestly, I don't think anything can punch that he can do. Because if I remember reading the hitbox data correctly, the light pinwheel moves your hitbox back a little bit as it starts. So I don't think he could even get me with a light. And if he did, I really wouldn't care about it.
Well, the other thing to consider is that what is the startup of your light pinwheel?
5, I think. Oh, man.
Since your light BP actually starts at 7, which means that the pullback may be useful. The medium one starts at 6 for whatever reason. May be important, and certainly something that she can check out. But overall, at -3, that's a 4-frame special.
Clearly I need to be teching these throws, because he's being super annoying. Alright.
Well, that is certainly one more thing to practice. Since obviously if you get thrown instead of hit, none of this matters in the first place. So you can either learn to predict and tech, or you can potentially preemptively jab him out of the range or other such things. To save myself a little bit of effort, I have gone with the preemptive jab out of range, or just walk back or such occasionally when his throws get too annoying. But it's something that I will add back in later on as I go along. This sort of training is very good for letting you build up layers of things as you go through the process of learning to react to even just this one particular move.
Another thing I'm noting is that at least the bot specifically tends to like read the fact that you are going to dash, so he pushes a button and punishes you for that. But if you walk forward, not much really happens.
Particularly since you can block and take small steps.
Exactly. So that was something I was noticing that it was forcing me to do, which is not the worst of things to learn how to do. So my light kick does not reach there. Noted.
So what does that make your candidate options?
Crouching light kick and medium punch are usually my go-tos for this sort of thing. And it's looking like it's not entirely untrue at the closer ranges, but that Yoga Flame really does push me back quite a bit. So at some ranges, I'll even have to go for like standing heavy punch, which isn't that like that.
Which seems to be a decent hit confirm. And actually, if you consider it, that did what, like almost half of his life bar? So
it was
okay. 40%?
40%.
Close.
Maybe.
That's what one would consider almost half. In any case. So the thing that comes about as a result of this sort of practice is the fact that obviously you're going to mess it up sometimes. He might hit light buttons, he might jump back light kick, or do things that will evade you and punish you, but because of the little time he has, his options are severely reduced. And most of those options don't do very much damage. So, when you consider that if you can, off of one good confirm, get sometimes as much as 40% damage, the fact that he will occasionally get lights doesn't necessarily matter as much. Because overall, being able to do this means that the interaction itself is not in his favor. And this allows you to control the match by perhaps eliminating certain options or forcing him to always block in certain situations, and overall shape things to your desires simply by learning how to deal with things in this sort of manner. So even in points where it's like, oh, but this is technically unsafe, or I don't have a perfect option for this, it's important to consider, well, now, if my imperfect option does get stopped, how bad is that for me? Which is a problem I certainly have that this has helped with a little bit, and it's something to watch for in your own training, so you don't get too obsessed about trying to find the absolute perfect answer, or becoming upset that you don't necessarily have some one thing that covers every option exactly.
That's the other problem about my heavy punch, though, is that he can just slide right underneath it and just stop all momentum. It's not that big a deal, honestly. Slide is not the worst thing that could happen to you against Dawson, but
And really it's more or less an example of this. Because while he can slide and hit you most of the time, what does he get off of that? As far as I can tell, not much. And so, sure, he might decide to slide, but he doesn't get much off of it, so it doesn't hurt you immediately, especially compared to perhaps dumping a CA in him dependent. But, or at least a decent combo. But, more importantly, if he starts to slide every time, simply because that is what hits you, then now suddenly you have a very good idea of what he's going to do, and can do the thing that punishes slide horribly. Simply changing the shape of something while making it even more certain for yourself that he's going to choose a specific option that you can learn how to respond to.
Yeah, I am learning the value of not dashing today.
Dash.
Do that.
Alright, you can get under it. So now it's about time again to switch off to our next character.
Just didn't have that charged.
Well, we can consider that a CA kill.
Sure. You know, in retrospect, I wish I would have tried standing medium kick and B canceling that. Because her stand medium kick has a lot of range. And is safe, generally. Noted
And
for next time.
now you have something to practice in the future. Alright then. I do not personally play Chun-Li a great deal, but I have been poking at her a little bit from time to time. And I got to watch a while ago a bit of Rillian's own training against Dawson. So I have some amount of memory of what options I might have here, and what possibly can happen as a result of that. So one that I remember is that I can do that. And I'm not sure what that beats, but obviously it's not the worst thing in the world, and being a crush counter, it's very easy to confirm. You can apparently duck under it, however. So my challenge now is going to be to go and try and figure out what else I can use, at what ranges, and what I can do with this. So I might ask Just Fine here to pull up the frame data for Chun-Li.
Righto.
And we'll see what I can do with that. So I think he can simply Yoga Fire again, or medium kick to get under that, at certain ranges.
What do you need to know?
A lot.
Thanks.
Well, I didn't ask you to answer any questions, only to pull it up.
Okay.
So, the first thing I want to figure out is, obviously, the stand heavy kick is glorious if I'm at what seems like I might need to be max range to the point where he could almost have whipped. And obviously that's not going to work, but being a crush counter, I might be able to dash up. So, do you have the counter hit for advantage for her crush counter?
Not on frame data 5.
Fair enough. Alright, well, we can look that up another time. But, in the meantime, find me, you know, relatively on these buttons. What options do I have that are likely to hit him after that? That are also going to be fast enough. Obviously, one possibility is stand medium kick. Maybe crouch medium kick, depending.
That's the main two.
So obviously I have crouch medium kick here.
Suggested. You might also be able to get, I think it's back medium punch? Is that it?
Yes.
Yeah, that one.
So that's
certain
not...
ranges. It's probably not going to work at all ranges.
Sure.
Also, man, that yoga flame makes so many situations safe. Like, I have a new respect for the yoga flame.
Which makes it all the more interesting to learn to deal with it effectively in a relatively reliable way. So it doesn't look like the stand medium kick is cancelable directly into legs. So I can consider light kick, which is going to beat anything, if I can do the confirm correctly. I can try a medium kick.
If you land the medium kick, I think you can go into spinning blade. I think.
Alright.
And that should pull you a little more forward than legs does. So I'm not sure if that would make you be able to punch it in more situations or not, but it's worth a look. Brilliant would be able to tell us she's right there.
True, but it would ruin a bit of the experimentation.
I suppose.
Step one, of course, being to get in. And so there's that slide. And I ate it. And it did a little bit of damage. And at the end of the day, not epic. Indeed.
Silent Science should be like the name of like a cover band or something.
I could see that being some random competitor who then proceeds to sweep whatever tournament.
Have you tried getting in with Spinning Bird?
Dropped my medium kick at the start. So getting in with Spinning Bird is not the worst thing in the world, it seems. Although now I'm thinking about my heavy punches. So tell me what the startup frames on stand and crouch heavy punch are.
Crouch is 7 and stand is 11.
So 11 is a little much, but it also has extremely far range, so it might be useful at way back. I won't focus on it now, however. But you said 7.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
However, that would be for the first hit, and the first hit is a little bit closer than I seem to tend to end up.
You know, if you just, at the further ranges went to forward medium kick, I bet that would do you a little more good than trying to reach with a bunch of other buttons. It'll probably be locked, but...
Is forward different from standing?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, well, what is the startup on forward then?
Whatever the tail slabby one is.
Oh, stand heavy, or forward heavy kick.
Yeah, that.
Well, tell me the startup on it.
18.
Not going to work then. I'm getting lots of Sinenshu because on Kareen and Cammy, who do not have the forward medium kick, I start my quarter forward for the cancel, and then I hit the medium kick, so it ends up at the wrong timing. Which means that I'm not going to get that option. However, when V-cancel is considered...
Is that a light legs?
I have no idea what I put in.
I really hope they, like, give her a little more V-timer, because as it is right now, it's super toothless. Like, it lasts really not that good.
Actually, what is the startup on that? Although I would not want... Because I wouldn't be able to confirm it, so it would just be more or less suicidal. And so in a part, this is continuing from our theme from previous days. From Monday's stream, wherein... Can this even cancel into legs? I think it can't. Nope, I have to V-cancel it. Alright then. There's a lot of stuff that you need to ignore, even taking damage from various sources, possibly even repeatedly, because at the end of the day, it doesn't actually matter to you. Alright, those throws. Alright. So I've decided that I can't execute the crouch medium kick yet, and that would probably take me a bit of training to do itself. The stand heavy punch into V-cancel is slow, and so it works, but only at maximum range, more or less, when he can't hit his medium kick, as Billion was pointing out earlier. And I believe I have just demonstrated another one of the challenges that I have noted when I have been working on some of this myself. Dhalsim can jump. And that jump, even if you hit it, will leave him airborne. And when Dhalsim is airborne, your same combos aren't going to all work. And so it's another thing that as you go along, you get to add to your mix of reactions. You get to learn how to not just confirm counter hit, but either confirm whether he was in the air when you hit him, which is actually quite visually obvious as he reels differently and it's very blatant. Or figure out what combos you can do that will work either way. I'm betting if I can cancel a crouch medium kick into spinning bird, that I get to hit him regardless of whether he's in the air or not. Now I'm too far out, so if he does it from there... I see. Alright then. I'll accept a little bit of assistance so that I don't have to spend too long trying out things that don't work at all. So yes. While I'm trying to do this, I get to learn various things, including which of Chun-Li's buttons are cancelable. Including what range I feel like I'm safe to use this really long-range heavy punch, which is slightly too slow on its own, but when you combine the range, I get to do more. Still practicing the counter-hit combos. Or counter-hit confirms, obviously. It is the medium kick. Ah, okay, and the V cancel. Okay. Since we are ending our Chun-Li segment shortly and moving on to our next character, I will try and do a little bit of that. Although I just erased my own meter out of effectively impatience, which is unfortunate. Here I find myself hitting the standing one. I haven't managed to get myself in all the discussion distracted from this one, so here we are. Oops. How on earth did I manage to put out a spinning bird there? Because I had to go standing for the medium punch. Someday I will do that in response to the correct thing. Because this has great range, actually. Noted. And there we have it. A relatively useful one that works from probably most ranges, given the speeds of things involved. So I think I'll see if I can do that one more time, and then we can head off to the wonderful land of our next Mika. It is. Next character, Mika. Another useful part of this, since I don't think I want to get this, I'm going to advance anyway, but another useful part of this is that while you do get counter hit if you screw things up and manage to hit a button slightly too slowly, or maybe hit a button at the wrong range where he has something lighter after all that he can hit you with, you can't V-cancel off of getting hit. And so at the end of the day, it can save your V-cancel if you're relying on a V-cancel combo for things. But this brings up one more point to consider as well. And that specifically would be that while V-cancel combos can be extremely devastating, you're not always going to have V-trigger to do them with. Or you're not always going to have the CA gauge to do your max combos and things. So it can be useful as well to effectively be aware of this and figure out several options for at least some things so that Dulcim doesn't get to Yoga Flame you for free simply because you don't have your V-trigger yet. Or so that once he's spent it, he doesn't feel confident and get back to punishing you. Or if he does, perhaps you can actually deal with it. And so it's important to learn various options. And obviously you can spend a lot of time training on even one specific thing like this and improve all sorts of different various areas about your understanding or your skills. So for the moment, we have Mika.
Mika's great at cheating.
And what would that be?
So basically, the way her V trigger works is that even if I activated it on a thing that got blocked, it still serves as like pressure. And with that pressure, I can set up a lot of different situations, like setting up for a command throw or pushing them further to the corner. Or even just faking them out with pressure and making them whip something in response. That being said, Mika has a lot of trouble keeping in against Dulcim. It's one of the harder matchups I have, and honestly, if I ever had to fight one in like a tournament or something, I would probably just use Bison, because it can be a very frustrating situation sometimes. That being said, I get to do things like that, so there are some things that balance it out a little. But the CPU does the Yoga Flame at a very, like, specific range. So, like, you can't just, like, keep going in on him, because then he'll jump away, or push some other button that interrupts, like, your spacing. Well, that was interesting. Alright, so 5 medium punch is gonna take a little bit. I'm pretty sure I can't hit that unless I'm like point blank and he does it. But again, he doesn't tend to do it at that range. Like there. You know, I don't actually know if I get anything off of a V-canceled stand medium tilt.
Well, you have before you the opportunity to find out.
You gotta cancel that pretty soon. I wonder if she even has the ability to cancel at the beginning of her recovery for that. I'm pretty sure that's not a timing issue. Alright, I'll try that out.
Let me see your energy gauge back quickly in this mode. Counter hit, but don't know if it's a bad one.
No, the beat cancel happens pretty late in the kick, and like I was saying, I'm pretty sure that's not my doing, because there's a fairly large delay between when the beat cancel happens and when I push the button.
I see. Well, what else can you use? You certainly have your medium punch, which I believe you can turn into a throw, if there is confirmation. Although you'd have to be sort of close for that, and I'm not sure how the pushback is.
I'm learning things that I'm not intending to learn.
Almost a good side effect at the end of the day. Because you can study the thing you're intending to learn for as long as you want. But the more interesting side notes you collect, the better off you are, I suppose? Assuming they're in any way useful.
Duly noted that beats the heavy kick.
Well, how many frames is the start upon that uncharged?
13.
Okay, so most of his stuff will. However, we might be back in the position of Chun-Li's stand heavy punch or such, where if you're far enough out that his medium kick can't hit you, you can still do something.
Let's see here. Probably could have EX reached that.
And your V-trigger itself, particularly on Mika, makes things even more interesting. In any case, let's switch over to our next character when Just Fine is feeling ready. Oops.
Yeah, I want to try,
Well, if you want to try one or two more things, that's part of feeling ready at the end. So, what are you trying?
Light kick has a deceptively long range. Or crouching light kick, I mean. So I was trying to figure out if that would reach where I wanted to. Doesn't seem so, though.
I see.
So it looks like at closer ranges I can do the standing heavy punch, which isn't really surprising to me. I'll have to test later if I can do a V cancel out of standing medium kick at close ranges.
Alright then.
Alright, we can switch.
Next up, Kareen. Now, Kareen specifically, I have in fact had a bit of time practicing this with. So I have a little bit of idea of what I can or what I want to do. And we can go through some of that, and I can get a little more practice in actually doing them and figuring out a little bit more of my options. So, oops. There we go. Ah, I managed to get myself stunned already. Kareen has various options for various ranges. As I get farther and farther out, I get different things off of them. If I'm super close when he does it, I can use maybe even my medium punch. I found that I can use crouch medium punch at certain ranges, although it's quite close. When I'm all the way out, I'm stuck with simply the stand medium kick itself, which I don't get much off of, and it seems that I don't get much off of even if I cancel it. However, from there, I have the glorious stand heavy punch option as well. So that's my favorite spot, more or less. Stand heavy punch is 8 frames for Kareen, which means that at -3 I'm going to tie with any 5-frame move and counter hit it if I am, or beat it by priority more specifically, if it's only a medium. However, of course, if I miss, it's even more whiff punishable than my other options. So for me, one thing that's very important here has been learning my ranges. Because it's the difference between getting effectively nothing but a possibly. I can. I was looking based on block, but you raise a fair point in that if I use the safe Gurnken, which I think is that one, or even honestly other options, it may work out for me. I was going simply based on block rather than doing the actual frame math on the cancel and such options, which is a good way to start, but can leave you missing certain things, as has been noted. So I'm going to try that out a little bit. So that may not be as hopeless as I had thought it was. Thank you, Brilliant.
It's certainly a way to keep pressure on him, too, at the very least. He would have to teleport out in order to get away from being close to you or something.
This is true. So, and in any case, I will definitely consider adding that to my training. However, for the more direct case, or rather for slightly closer ranges, I have the stand heavy punch option. And at that range, unfortunately I did not get to it in time, but I can have a standard crouch medium punch, which will also let me crumble into things. But be even safer on hit, or if my opponent is not ready at all, on whip. Sorry, safer on block. There I needed the medium kick. There I could have done the heavy kick. Or the heavy punch, rather. And at the max range where he can't do his medium kick, I bet, as far as heavy properties go, I get to crush counter him with my stand heavy kick. Oh, Dawson.
Oh, I guess that makes sense. I don't think I've ever seen that done before.
What? The...
Going through the reversal.
I didn't even notice what I did, apparently.
Well, I don't think many people V-reversal Gurren can either, so... Probably for that reason.
So there's that V-cancel making my buttons safe, which can help you in a real match if you realize you screwed up. But unfortunately it does mean that I effectively wasted my V-cancel then on being safe, which is certainly helpful, but doesn't let me turn into the damage in the same way that I couldn't have otherwise. So it is still, of course, ideal to actually learn the counter hit confirm. EX Mujin's first hit, I think... Well, let's experiment a little. I know it does not it did not seem fast enough to cancel out of the stand medium kick, but let's have a look. Screw you, Dawson. Well, to simply answer the question, let's see if I can get anything off it a little wrong. So that was 3 hits. Its natural is not a hit there. In fact, there's a simpler way to answer this. Natural 4 hits, 5 hits. So from about here, about the range of where I'll be if I V-cancel would be about here, probably. Actually, I can cheat again and turn on counter hits. So now everything is exactly how it would be in the actual situation. I'm about here. Four hits, so that would have worked. Does he block after first? Alright. Looks like it would work, and for those of you who are not aware, that move is -2, I believe it is, on block, so it's very safe. And obviously it does me a decent chunk of damage. 153, 200 if I land it. So for the moment, there's that. The other useful thing is I think it will allow me to deal with a juggle state as well. In any case, let's have our way over now to Bison, and Just Fine can show you her options and such there.
And this will be the last character of the night, too.
Unless we also do Cammy.
I'm still getting used to that hit stun.
Well, and the other thing is that in ideal conditions, although your V-trigger will make you safe, even on an unsafe normal, you don't want to waste it. So one of the goals of the training is to learn not just to counter-hit confirm by using your V-trigger as a tool, but to learn to counter-hit confirm your V-trigger itself, in the sense that if you hit the normal and you don't get the counter-hit, you don't want to activate V-trigger at all. Which is obviously a little bit of a balancing act mentally if you're not used to this all. Because it can be a little easy to go forward directly into it.
And I did get a little practice with Bison against this, focusing on these points. So, well, not focusing on these points, but just fighting Dawson CPU a little bit. And I noted that outside of V-trigger, this matchup is pretty hard, but once Bison gets his V-trigger, suddenly he can do real stupid things like that. The evasion just beats Dawson in a lot of ways that is kind of nice.
So how do you handle this Bison?
Mostly a combination of standing medium kick. Oops. I really should, like, spend a lot of time on this just to get the confirmed habit down. What? That was so cheating.
Yes.
But, crouching medium kick has a really, really long reach and lets me cancel into scissors. And I was working on this earlier today, is that you can cancel at the end of, just at the very end of scissors, to buy you a few more frames to do standing light punch. And standing light punch, in between the time of the scissors and the light punch, you basically have enough time to charge and for a Psycho Burst, and you can, obviously, since now you're in V-trigger, you can get a EX, I think it's supposed to be Stomp after that. You could probably get Scissor Kick off it too, but Stomp does more damage, I think. Anyway, enough time spent away from him. but it's nice overall because even if I do mess up the confirm, like Mika, honestly, she has a similar thing with her staying medium pick. The option we have for basically counter pressuring him is safe. So even if I don't confirm correctly, I'm still okay. Not the best of things, and honestly it's a bad habit in some ways, but it's still a nice little feature.
Do you mean that the move you're confirming into is safe on block?
Right.
Okay.
Scissors is generally safe. It puts you in a not so great position. You still have to deal with the throw mix-up and such, but man, I cannot manage to stay in range of it.
Death.
I could have done EX head stomp though and be fine.
Wait, really?
Yes, because it has projectile invincibility.
I see. Does that actually count as a projectile, though, as a CA?
Yes.
I see. Well, I'll do that next time.
Sure. Also, I think crouching medium punch is another button I can use. And that one, while it doesn't reach as far as crouching medium kick, it can cancel into Psycho Burst, which has a few more nice ways of getting you damage in. Overall, setting up a nice situation since Bison's meaties off of Burst are pretty annoying for the opposing player.
So overall, it seems like it's a very good button for this type of setup, assuming you happen to be close enough at the time for it to reach.
Yeah, for sure. And as you can see there, oh man.
Not quite in the head stop.
Oh right, I was supposed to do head stop. Damn it. Completely forgot. Oh well. Anyway, as I was saying, it lets me do the Psycho Burst, which pushes him back, and even though it's -4, it pushes Dulcim so back he can't do anything to punish me, so. Nice ways of making me safe, but they don't focus on the damage aspect, which is what I think we're sort of working on, the hit confirm.
Well, more or less at the end of the day, it's about getting advantage. Normally you want damage so that you can obviously make it worth your while, punish him, and pay him back for any light chips he's gotten off on you, just interrupting things that he can't convert into. But, head stomp? That is so ridiculous. I approve. Anyway. But at the end of the day, if it's better for you to get a positional, meaty, whatever other advantage, and you can do more with that than you can with the damage, yeah, sure, go with that. Because the point isn't to damage your opponent at the end of the day, the point is to win the match. And those often go hand in hand, but there are times when certain other things are better.
Sure.
Which really is something important to keep in mind when you're thinking about any sort of real setups when in playing this game.
Ah, he ate my frames.
So on that note, I think that we are going to wrap up our stream now. I could stop by and show you some Cammy, but it's actually quite straightforward. Between her 6-frame stand heavy punch and her long-reaching 9-frame crouch heavy punch, which is V-cancelable, she has decent options for punishing and dealing with this that are, honestly, at least for me, much easier to do the counter hit confirm on than some of the other characters that I've tried. So now, if you like, having watched our stream, you can go home, take it back to your own training mode, pop up Dulcim in CPU level 8 form, and give yourself a little V-gauge, maybe, maybe not, and see what you can do. Then, of course, as we work out the more complete and formal form of our kata, you may be able to find a disc guidance on the matter on our stream here at twitch.tv/2_mk, and eventually see it on our website 2-mk.org/katas, our newly released kata page, along with the other katas that we have produced.
Yeah, so far we got Ken and Ryu with Kata 21 and 22.
So, with that, have a good night, everyone.
Good night.